What wonders does Watches and Wonders hold? This is the question that we plan on maybe answering this episode. There is some other things we have to get to first. As you can tell, this is not your normal episode. I'm not alone in the studio. I'm joined by Zach Kazan.
Thanks for having me on Week in Watches. It's great to be back. It's been a while. Happy to be here on our long-running series.
Yes, a long-running episode 77. I don't know if I said that yet. I usually do this with a script, but now I'm back to the paper.
It's very unusual in a number of ways.
So this is going to be fun. We asked our wonderful Slack community, the Warner Wound Plus Slack community, for some questions about Watches and Wonders, which will be coming up very shortly after this episode airs. This is the episode before Watches and Wonders happens. So we figured we'd talk a little bit about expectations and we'll take these actually really wonderful questions here. Before we get to our Watches and Wonders pre-coverage, there is a little bit of news we have to go over, but even before that, we'd like to say that this episode is sponsored by the Wind-Up Watch Shop. Head to the Wind-Up Watch Shop to find assortments of new watches, watch accessories, straps, EDC, all other sorts of cool things. Even a tourbillon. I haven't had it. This is not mine, by the way, but we do sell this actually at the Wind-Up Watch Shop.
Is this the first tourbillon in the Wind-Up Watch Shop?
Yes, this is the first tourbillon in the Wind-Up Watch Shop.
Amazing.
That is very cool. So this is
a real milestone.
Real milestone. Yeah. This is the Louis Rard X Alain Silberstein tourbillon. A lot of fun. Head to windupwatchshop.com to check that out and more. If I had written this as a script, I would have said, oops, they did it again. There's a new MoonSwatch. Can you tell us about the new Omega X Swatch watch that came out?
I guess I have to.
You have to. I'm putting you on the spot.
It's so 2 years after the original MoonSwatch hysteria, Swatch has released the Mission to the Moon Phase MoonSwatch, which is an all-white MoonSwatch based on the color of the full moon, which apparently is all
white.
All white, a brilliant, gleaming white, and it looks at a glance like a normal MoonSwatch, but this is actually, it has a moon phase complication, and within that moon phase complication, there is a dozing Snoopy because he's exhausted, just like all of us, for various reasons.
Not exhausted necessarily by the MoonSwatch itself, just exhausted by life.
We'll never really know for sure.
We'll never really know for sure.
But yeah, this is the most recent MoonSwatch release. It actually does, I think, represent something genuinely new in the MoonSwatch collection, or the bioceramic Swatch adjacent group collection of watches. Obviously, there was the Blancpain collaboration, which kind of fits in here as well. New complication, moon phase. Snoopy, obviously an important, character in Omega Speedmaster history. So this is something that's been teased for a while and kind of hotly anticipated. So now we have it. It's got a fun loom treatment as well that's unique to this watch.
So there's like a hidden message, something like that.
It has a hidden message when you shine a UV light on the moon phase register.
What does it say?
Go to the article to find.
Go to the article. Okay.
It's a secret.
It's a secret. It's a secret. Yeah, it's a secret just for you. Yeah, this is an interesting, like you said, this is the first real new one. They did the gold hands, so this is really the first real genuine new one. It's interesting they put a moon phase on it, which is a cool complication. It's also interesting, it's a white dial that came out right after the Speedmaster white dial.
Yes, I doubt that's a coincidence.
Yes, I doubt it too. Yeah. And I like though that the Snoopy's on a crescent moon, which makes the moon phase even far more useless than a normal moon phase, because there's no way to actually tell what the phase is there.
I don't know how much. I haven't done a full deep dive into how the complication actually works in this execution, but I imagine for most people it's largely going to be decorative. I would think it's fun, it's whimsical, it's sort of kind of what you want in a MoonSwatch. I think the other thing that's worth pointing out about this is that they've gone back to their original release model from 2 years ago, so this is only going to be available in a handful of Swatch stores. And
that actually, there's one more release. I was debating if we should talk about it. There's one more release, and it ties in because it also has a moon phase. And I think this is a watch that you and I are just really big fans of, and that is the Oxen Jr. Day-Night 40, now part of the Ox line. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Day-Night is one of the most interesting, complicated watches that I think anyone makes right now. It's an astronomical complication, custom made by Oxen Jr., Ludwig Auschland's own design. Basically what this does is it tells you the position of the moon and the sun in the sky. It tells you the length of the day and the night, gives you the moon phase. It's a calendar, obviously. What else does it tell you? It has all
I
these.
think that might be it, but it's like the way those things kind of work together that's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it actually tells you where solar noon is.
That's
versus
solar
real
noon. That's the other one. Yeah.
And then there's a video on their site about like how to actually read the moon phase on this, because it's not a typical moon phase. The moon is rotating around the outside of the watch, and it's where that is compared to the sun is the phase. So if it's directly across from it, I believe then it's a full moon. If it's over, it's a new moon.
Exactly.
Very different way of reading it. And then you have these two baffles that change for the length of the day and night, and that is specific to where you are. So they actually have a part I think they need to customize for that.
Yep. So it's a single part that they manufacture based on kind of like where you live in the world, and that determines how those baffles behave basically. And if you move to another part of the world, they offer a service where you can have that part replaced. So a nice feature from Oxen Jr. there.
And so now, this used to exist as a customized only watch, which was around, I think, 16,000 Swiss francs starting price. They may go up quick as you customize them. But this, as it's part of the Ox line, no longer customizable, but comes in at a much more tolerable price point.
It's around 10,000 Swiss francs, something like that.
Which is, I mean, that's kind of an amazing deal for what this watch is. It's also powered by Elise Nardin movement, base movement. So I don't know, this is really exceptionally cool.
Yeah, this is I think my favorite Oxen Jr. Watch. It's so unique, and it really kind of gets to the heart of what's special about the brand. I think the way that they have this like kind of like minimalism in its true sense. We often talk about like how brands use the word minimalism and they don't really understand what that means, but like this is really, in terms of like the design of the movement itself, like minimal to its core. There's something like 13 extra components that are added to the base movement to create this complication. It's a pretty special thing.
Very special, very special. If you want to learn more about that, check out our article on Worn & Wound, of course. And now let's talk a little bit about Watches and Wonders. I said we have a bunch of questions ranging in topics. We'll even get to a little bit of what we like to eat in Geneva, which is probably the most important thing of all. One question that actually ties back to something we already spoke of from Sean Martin is, do you think there's any chance Swatch Group returns to Watches and Wonders at some point?
I don't think they'll return to Watches and Wonders. I think that if that were going to happen, I feel like it might have already happened within the last couple of years. The Swatch Group seems to be kind of like finding their own path in terms of like how they're announcing new releases and working with their dealer networks and so forth. It doesn't involve a single big trade show. I think what'll be more interesting is to see if there is any coherence in the future going forward between Swatch Group brands, because right now they're all kind of like doing their own thing, it seems like, and they all have like slightly different strategies in terms of how to communicate new releases.
Yeah, I will say I miss the Basel days when they were a part of it. The first floor, the back half of the first floor was just all Swatch Group. You'd bounce from Mito to Hamilton to Omega to Jacques Drouot to like all the brands, and you could learn everything and get everything new. So it was, it was a big part of, frankly, that fair was like Swatch Group's announcements, and then they left, and there hasn't been an organized show for them since, really, all the brands together at least, which is just, it's made it a little kind of, like less focused.
It's a little disconnected. Each brand kind of does their own sort of like mini show or mini presentation. Like you were at a Longines event a few weeks ago.
Can't talk about anything I saw. So.
Yeah, and then obviously there's we just talked about the new Swatch release. Omega, of course, had their new Speedmaster last week. So it's like I said, it's a little bit disconnected. It'll be interesting to see if they do something together as a group, perhaps in the future. But I don't think that they're going to show up at Watches and Wonders anytime soon.
I agree. Moving on from there. So this is an interesting question from Josh Wilcox, good friend. Outside of the top 4 or 5 biggest brands that command all the attention in watch media coverage, Rolex, Tudor, TAG, IWC, Cartier, which is a pretty accurate group of brands, is Watches and Wonders becoming more or less important to brands that exhibit at the show?
I think it's more important for some small brands, perhaps, and less important for some of those brands that people are going to be focused on no matter what. That's my first instinct. Of course, those brands have like big releases and are very splashy, and they get a lot of coverage. But I feel like there's maybe more opportunity if smaller brands have something like really interesting or compelling to kind of like break through at an event like Watches and Wonders. What do you think?
And yeah, it's sort of the, once again, similar to the Bosworld days, like it brings this spotlight on the industry. So like if you can get in that spotlight, maybe the center of the spotlight is Tudor and Rolex. But being just somewhere in there really will helps a lot of brands. And we've seen, a crop of brands that we talk about pretty regularly on Warner Well, micro brands, independent brands, get into that light somewhat. Maybe they're not at the fair itself, Watches and Wonders, but now they're doing stuff within the city. And I feel like, in that sense, like they're really, it's a big deal for them. I mean, there's international press. It's sort of like a guaranteed coverage to some extent because you're part of this just week of release madness. As for the Watches and Wonders itself, I don't know. It's such a crazy time. We'd have to actually probably ask a brand specifically.
I think so. Yeah.
But would they answer us honestly? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. You just never really know.
Yeah. So that brings us to another question that is sort of similar, but from Roberto Machoro. Eyes are always on the big maisons, like the ones we just mentioned. What makes you say wow at an event like this?
Yeah, I'm looking for something that's genuinely compelling and interesting and exciting. Really like the wonders piece of Watches and Wonders, the thing that is that kind of like is inspiring and really different. I think about, this is a big brand, but I think about like the Kodo from 2 years ago from Grand Seiko. I think about like all of the like really insane high jewelry pieces from Cartier. Again, another big brand, but you get the idea of the stuff that like you really can't see, at least for people like us. You're just not going to see like outside of a show like that. That's what I'm really interested in beyond like sort of the more consumer based stuff. I like to see like the incredibly unique artisanal high end stuff that you're just not going to see anywhere else. Yeah,
for sure. I always like, you lose yourself in these watches and in going to these brands, and there's something really intoxicating about going from a meeting with like Laurent Ferrier to a meeting with Chapek to a meeting, and like you're handling these watches that like other than that we're not going to see the rest of the year. And that experience, that's sort of the wow comes almost for me from actually feeling these watches that we too have just been looking at in images.
Sure.
I'm very excited, for example, to see like Ferdinand Berthaud this year. It's a brand I didn't get to see last year. Those watches are easily in the six figures, all of them. Probably not going to run into anyone any day soon wearing one.
Not likely, yeah.
Yeah, so, but the finishing, everything that goes into it, it just makes you appreciate watchmaking that much more. So.
Yep. All right, I'll ask the next question, because this is a good one from Daniel Mialo. I think kind of along similar lines, but a slightly different take on a theme we've been talking about here. There are a lot of exhibiting brands that don't receive much coverage, regardless of price point. What off the beaten path brands at the show do you find the most exciting?
So, I mean, when I hear off the beaten path, I literally think of like outside of Watches and Wonders, literally a different path. And that's actually become a really growing part of going to Geneva for this week, this Watches and Wonders week. So we go to Time to Watches event one day. We go to the Hotel Beau Rivage for a day, where it's becoming ever more full of brands exhibiting, and then also the HCI event. Masters of Horology, I think that's maybe called. Those are all full of like really fascinating and interesting brands. Some brands I think are actually launching there. And we'll actually just literally go through the hotel and stop in and say hi. One brand I'm very excited to see this year, they've been teasing pretty heavily, so this is not giving anything away, but is Space One. By Guillaume Ledet and Theo Offray. Last year they did the Jump Hour watch, which was very successful, very cool. They're doing something with an astronomical complication, which, once again, go to their Instagram account. I don't even think I could successfully explain it right now. I need to learn a little bit more about it.
It's pretty off the wall.
But it's going to be really incredible. I have a feeling it's going to be one of the highlights of the show. Maybe that's setting myself up for disappointment, but I don't know. It looks very cool.
It wouldn't be a Watches and Wonders experience if you didn't set yourself up for some sort of disappointment. There's always something that like disappoints or goes wrong somewhere along the line. No questions about that. I mean, I agree. Honestly, like those kind of really like smaller boutique brands that we see like at the Beau Rivage. I remember just going around, last year with you guys and just kind of going from like suite to suite and exhibit to exhibit, just kind of being blown away by like, all the ingenuity and creativity that's happening with some of these smaller independents. I'm also really looking forward to seeing Space One. That was our introduction to them last year when we saw them in Geneva, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing their follow-up. But yeah, I think that like it's important to remember that there's so much going on in Geneva during Watches and Wonders. It brings so many people into the city for watch-related stuff. There's, the off the beaten path is really like most of the activity that's happening in Geneva. There's so much to see when you're there.
100%. All right, so that makes me think this is the perfect time for the last question from Yoto Woti. I hope I pronounced that right. What are your favorite places to eat when you're there? Any standout dishes or restaurants that we go to? This is very important stuff.
I've talked a lot about the little sandwiches that they give you in the press lounge at Watches and Wonders, which is not my favorite thing to eat.
That's
at Watches
fuel.
And Wonders. It's fuel. That's just raw calories to get you through the day. We, for the last 2 years, have eaten at this really great Singaporean restaurant in Geneva that we've literally just like stumbled into the first year that we were there. What's the name of the?
I think it's Jecks. Jecks. I hope it's still there. I haven't looked it up recently. But
fantastic restaurant. Really great people who run it. Incredible service, incredible food. So that's kind of become like a little bit of a worn and round tradition to go there.
Food in Geneva is not exactly affordable in the normal sense. It's kind of like being in the heart of Manhattan for meals. And I remember when we got into Jecks, we're like, oh, this is like a family-run restaurant with like really good food. That's like didn't feel like the rest of the restaurants we've done.
And I've got to say, maybe this is a hot take, but I don't think the Swiss cuisine is like all that great. It's just a lot of melted cheese and veal sausage, really.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'd rather have a Singaporean meal. I think.
I think I liked the food more on the German side by Basel versus the French side, which was a little bit more into the schnitzel, kind of thing. I could
It's
eat
definitely
schnitzel
more my wheelhouse. Yeah.
You don't get that here. But yeah, so I think that's our probably favorite place to eat. We'll be eating there this year. We'll let you know about it. And yeah, the next episode will be from the halls of Watches and Wonders, and we'll have content from, the whole show in general, not just on A Week in Watches. So this is a perfect opportunity for you to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of that content. There's a little bell thing. I don't really know what it does, but
no one does.
No one does?
No one does.
Give it a ring. Head to wornandwound.com daily for more awesome watch content. And yeah, we'll see you from Geneva.